Well, hi, Kirsten, and first off, thanks for inviting me to the program. Year on year, there's been a couple of changes. We've had some production decline from some of our base assets, and that's probably the main reason why production is down half on half.
Average realised prices were also lower. With a new wave of projects scheduled to come online later this year, is there further downside risk when it comes to the LNG price?
Actually, what we're seeing in the LNG price in the forward outlook is quite strong prices over the coming 12 to 24 months. And whilst there are some new projects coming online in the near term, we're also seeing a bit of demand recovery. So we actually are seeing a market where there's a desire and there's price signals for more LNG to come into the marketplace.
A global glut has been forecast for some years. Is that surprising to you?
You know, it's really interesting. We did some historic research, and the IEA was forecasting global LNG gluts in 2009, 2016, and now. And the thing that we've seen is amazing elasticity within the LNG marketplace, where LNG prices have been tracking very close to the same ratio against Brent for much of that period when that new wave of supply came online. And what that tells me actually is that LNG is a commodity that when it's available, customers will purchase it because it's got more flexibility than many other sources of energy, and it's got lower emissions intensity than coal. So as we think about how the world is going to tackle climate change, particularly in Asia, gas is going to help those nations decarbonize while continuing to have energy security.
The renewable transition itself is driving a rise in the demand for energy. Can you tell us how that is influencing future forecasts for gas demand?
Yeah, it's really fascinating, actually. And Western Australia probably has done some of the most clear modelling. So as Western Australia decarbonizes the grid and moves away from coal-fired power stations and increases the use of renewables, the total amount of gas in the power mix is going to double. So it's a great proof point that as the world moves to renewables, you've got to have something to firm it, to provide power in the nighttime, to provide power when the wind is not blowing. And natural gas is the lowest emissions intensity option.
How important is the Browse project to satisfying the increase in future demand?
Well, Browse is going to be an incredibly important asset, particularly in the 2030s. So the energy market operator regularly updates their forecasts for the demand and the supply outlook. We see a market where we'll be more or less balanced for the rest of the 2020s. There's potentially a few pinch points here and there, but there's some changes as well on the demand side. But once we get to the 2030s and the significant coal-fired power stations are shut off in Western Australia, the need for Browse gas is going to be even stronger.
Is the Browse project's viability under question after a preliminary rejection from WA's Environmental Protection Agency?
We have been working on the environmental approvals for Browse for over 6 years at both a state and Commonwealth level, so both regulators are involved. They continue to ask very challenging questions to ensure that we fully understand the risks to the marine environment and have appropriate steps in place to manage those risks. In the Western Australian legislature, at the end of the day, it's the minister's decision. So the EPA provides a recommendation, but the minister has the responsibility and the government has the responsibility to look at environmental factors, social factors, and economic factors and make a balanced decision.
And so you are confirming that Woodside has indeed received a preliminary rejection from EPA outlining concerns about what a spill could mean to marine life in the area of that potential project?
We continue to work very closely with the EPA to answer their questions. They've raised questions on a number of different environmental topics, and we're continuing to work closely with them to understand exactly what information is needed to help them have better clarity around their decision making.
Is there more that Woodside can do to actually mitigate against potential impacts to pygmy whales and endangered sea turtle nesting areas?
There are a number of changes that we have already made to the Browse design to make sure that we are minimizing any potential environmental impact. I think it's also worth noting that in the context of our work in and around Scott Reef, that we have underpinned a substantial body of scientific inquiry working with renowned partners like the Australian Institute for Marine Science and the Western Australian Museum to build the nation's understanding of the marine life in this particular part of Australia's waters.
If a project like Browse didn't proceed, what would be the impact on the federal government's plan to shore up gas supplies to 2050?
Well, look, Browse is the largest single discovered undeveloped gas resource offshore. It's going to provide an important role in helping meet Western Australia's energy needs in the 2030s. There's not a lot of options out there that could backfill or replace Browse.
Woodside has announced a strategic shift with plans to acquire what the company is calling new energy projects, including an ammonia production facility in the US. Analysts don't seem that convinced, at least so far. Are mergers and acquisitions looking increasingly attractive to Woodside going forward?
We've just announced in the last 6 weeks or so 2 acquisitions, one of an LNG opportunity in the US and the second of a clean ammonia project in Texas. We think both of those projects are attractive investments for Woodside and for our shareholders. There was a bit of a market surprise factor. I don't think the market expected us to do either of those acquisitions. But the more time we spend with investors, the more we're able to answer their questions about exactly how we will make these profitable investments and exactly what the market demand is for these 2 products. I think over time we'll be able to convince our investors that these, in fact, are very strong decisions for the company.
And are you looking at other projects similar to these ones that you've just identified in the past 6 weeks?
Yeah, well, first priority for us is to complete the transactions to bring these new employees from those 2 companies into the Woodside family and to get our business set up for success. So we're not pursuing any other material transactions at this point in time.
Woodside's share price is down about 28% over the past year. Is itself looking increasingly like a target for takeover?
I think Woodside is a strong company on its own merits. Our plan is to continue to thrive and be a strong, viable Australian company for many decades to come. And that's the focus of myself and my leadership team.
Meg O'Neill, thank you for joining The Business.
Thank you.